Okay, guys, welcome back to Let's Get Freaky. I am very excited to welcome our next guest to Let's Get Freaky. Tonight, we are joined by Miss G. Miss G, how are you? Thank you so much for being
Hello,
here.
hello. I'm doing well.
I'm
Doing
excited to
good.
have you. I'm excited to have you.
Thank you. I feel honored to be here. I think you're one of my top favorite YouTube
Oh,
channels.
thank you. Thank you so much.
Seriously, you have some of the most interesting guests that I've
Ah,
ever heard on a YouTube channel.
I really appreciate that. Thank you very much.
No
And
problem.
I'm excited to talk to you. So we started talking via email quite recently, and we talk on the
Hmm.
YouTube channel as well. So I'm excited to get into your experiences. And I believe this is the first time you've done a podcast. Is that right?
Yeah, I've never spoken in public with anyone
Wow.
about my experiences, so yeah, they're kind of weird but
Not on this show. Not on this show.
right.
Uh,
So should we start with why I got in contact with you?
yes, yeah, let's go.
So I one night I was listening to episode 253 with the brothers Jaron and Roman,
Yes, yeah, awesome dudes.
and I remember they were telling a story about how one of the brothers had gotten beaten up or maybe attacked by other kids when he was a little boy. The odd thing is that 2 days before that episode, I had a dream where I saw a little boy getting beat up. Well, he wasn't really getting beat up. He was kind of getting like slapped around, and his book bag was being pulled, and they were all behind a school. And I remember that the other brother was running around the house saying, "Where's my brother? Where's my brother? I think something's wrong." And he was really frantic. He said, to his mother, "We have to go look for him. Come on, let's go look for him. He's not home yet." Um, and so it was him, the little boy and his mother, and then a couple more other relatives ran to the school, and they saw the little boy that was attacked coming from behind the school, and his hair was kind of messy. His face was red, but it wasn't like he was punched or anything. He was kind of just slapped around a little bit, and he looked really traumatized, like very like just upset. And the little boy, his brother, ran up to him and hugged him, and the relatives hugged him, and they're like, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And the mother is just kind of standing there like in total disbelief that someone had attacked her son. And I remember what she looked like. I remember the book bag. I remember just feeling for her and the little boy and their family seeing this traumatic event. So when I heard that story on your episode, I was just like, wow, did I dream about their experience? Did I view it? It really shocked
Wow.
me.
Wow,
I,
yeah.
I couldn't believe it. It was just, so I said, I have to get in contact with Tommy and tell him about that.
Yeah.
And so I did, but I also had other things that were occurring. Um, real. So I told you about the coincidences with the
Mm-hmm.
Lion Man
Mm-hmm.
or
Yeah.
the lion headed people.
Yeah.
And so that started with, okay, one day my grandson and I were watching The Lion King, and he is autistic, so with some autistic children, they tend to do things over and over and over again. So we were watching Lion King like 10 times that day. And so later on that evening, I was listening to, I don't know if you've ever heard of Gary Wayne. He wrote the books Genesis 6 Conspiracy.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
he was on a podcast talking about the lion headed people, and he was trying to explain who they were in the Bible because they were mentioned in the Bible. And it just piqued my curiosity. I didn't think much about it. 2 days later, I was looking out the window and I saw a roofing company with the lion-headed person on the van, on the logo, the slogan. And I was like, wait a minute, wait, what's going on? I'm starting to see the pattern here.
Hmm.
And then I'm listening to, a couple days later, I'm listening to the Sasquatch Chronicles. And again, the lion-headed person is mentioned in that specific episode. And I think it was called, I wrote it down somewhere. Something about, it was recent, something about a Butte Mountain or something like that. If it's maybe 4 episodes, 5 episodes ago.
Hmm.
And so I heard the mention of the lion-headed person. And then yet last night I heard it again. I heard the mention of the lion-headed people mentioned in another Sasquatch Chronicles episode.
Interesting.
And
I love that podcast, by the way. One of my
I do
all-time
too.
favorites.
Oh, that's one of my favorites as well.
Yes.
And so what happened was after I talked to you, I was kind of looking into that, into the meaning of lions, and I guess there's supposedly there's a race of lion-headed people called the Lyra or something like that.
Hmm.
And I was looking into the definition of maybe the lion symbolism, and I can really relate to it because it symbolizes leadership and power and you know protection and loyalty and I kind of saw where I could apply that in my personal life.
Hmm.
So when I found that meaning, I stopped getting the coincidences until last night, and that's when I saw where I heard the mention of the line people again.
Interesting.
And so stuff like that has happened to me a lot in my life. I
Hmm.
call them thematic coincidences because um, I know there's meaning behind them, but I can't always understand why they're happening. And
Hmm.
so, as much as it happens, there are still times I just wonder, what is this all about? Why is this happening? I don't get it. Somebody, guide me through this or tell me. There's
Hmm.
not too many people that really have an understanding about it either. They really don't know specifically why we get those meanings, why or those messages.
Hmm.
And basically they just tell you, try to find some kind of meaning in your personal life. But I've had things like that happen all throughout my life. And so you know, you just think about it for a little while and then you kind of just move on
Yeah.
with
When
life.
you messaged me that, so you told me about the lion head,
Yeah.
and what is so strange, and this is absolutely true. On the day that you messaged me and I read that email,
Mm-hmm.
I was literally watching telly,
Yep.
and I'm not watching. I don't really. I watch daytime telly a little bit every now and again, but I'm not watching it
Yeah.
too much to be honest. But I'm watching the telly, and the adverts came on, and an
Uh-huh.
advert came on where all the people in the advert were lions, and they were like,
Mm-hmm.
but they were like lawyers. It was like injury lawyers for you or something like that. A lawyer advert, but they were all in suits, but they had lion heads, and I was like,
Yep.
reading your email, literally, uh, probably minutes after I've seen this ad, and I was like, that's
Wow.
weird. That's so strange. I've
Yep.
never seen that advert before, and I don't know if I've seen it since. I don't think I have. I mean, I'm sure it's an advert that plays over and over
Right.
again, but it was just very weird. And I said to you, like, I don't believe in coincidences anymore. I feel like these things happen for a reason.
Right.
And you said you got a positive message from that, would you say, from seeing?
Yes, I did. Yeah, I did. I think it kind of gave me kind of like a nudge to let me
Hmm.
know that maybe I was right about the meaning all along.
Hmm.
I kind of had a feeling what it was about, but I wasn't sure. So that
Interesting.
really tied everything in together for me.
Yeah.
And it was something personal that was happening and kind of just letting me know, you're being looked after, it's going to be okay.
Hmm. Hmm. That's
And
awesome.
so, and then you had a coincidence as well with the dragonfly, the
Hmm.
episode with the guy that saw the giant dragonfly, and then you went
Yes.
to that area.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's around that time, exactly around that time. So that, yeah, yeah. So that was Sam, had Sam on the show,
Yes.
Mr. Sam Sheeran,
Mm-hmm.
and he shared an experience when he was a kid. He came across a giant dragonfly that
Yes.
were not meant to be around, they were meant to be like prehistoric. But he saw that and he was with another boy as well, and it kind of flew at him, this dragonfly, and they obviously ran off. And he met someone else as well that saw one of these creatures in the UK, giant
Right.
dragonfly. And that, I think it was like the next day. So the day I released that episode, that
Mm-hmm.
day, I was
Mm-hmm.
down a local park not too far from me, and I must have seen this dragonfly sign before, but not really noticed it. But there's like a giant wooden sculpture of a giant dragonfly, and I was like, "Whoa!"
Yeah.
Literally just put that episode out today, and
Right.
things like that happen, man. It's so strange. It's
It is.
so strange. Yeah, yeah. You
It
reminded me. I
is.
forgot about that. Yeah, that is really
Yeah,
weird.
I remembered that because I
Yeah,
was like, it's happening to him now. So,
yeah, yeah.
did
And
it rub off of me onto you? And is
yeah.
that how it works? Or
I think we
I don't
definitely
know.
get signs. We definitely get some. I think I told you as well. I was seeing the number 33
Yes.
quite a lot, and I still often see it now as well. And I know
Mm-hmm.
you can see numbers, but this was so. Like I tell people this, and they're like, yeah, but you can make yourself see numbers. But honestly, I was every time I was looking at my phone or, the washing machine or, the number was just popping up constantly, 33, 33. And I was seeing this number and I was thinking, what does this mean? Like it was happening so often, it wasn't a coincidence,
Right. Mm-hmm.
like it was just happening and it was everywhere, like everywhere. And I sort of, the number 33 in the conspiracy world, a lot of people talk about that number in quite a negative way, and I was thinking, oh no, why am I seeing 33? And it's a negative number, a lot of people are saying. And then I kind of looked into it, and it's actually not, well, I don't think it's a negative number because it was saying it's an angel number and it's a sign telling you that you're on the right path and all that sort of stuff. And I was like, okay, that's cool then. I'm happy to see that. And I continue to see it to this day. I know a lot of people see 111. My wife sees that quite a lot, 111, and takes that as a good sign. 222 people see. You
Oh,
see numbers
yeah.
as well.
I see numbers all the time and have been for about 10 years now, maybe 10, 15 years now. And that's kind of how everything like, oh God, I just feel like I have so much to say, but there's just like everything seems to be wrapped up into each other. Every story sometime,
Hmm.
somehow ties in with something else. But I remember like in my early 40s, about 40, I was seeing numbers quite a bit, and I was actually going through a lot of emotional stress. And it ties in what was going on in the house too.
Hmm.
But I had to look into why I was going through this, and the numbers were kind of guiding me. I felt like, I would see 111, 333, 555, 444, and I've never seen that before. Not like every single day you turn around and it's like people say, well, you must be looking for it. No, I'm not looking for it.
Hmm.
I am just coming upon these numbers. And it wasn't like just on a clock, it was in receipts that you get, when you're paying for something, it was on a
Yes.
bill, it was license plates, it was it, and it I just was like, this is leading me somewhere. Where is this leading me to? And it just opened up a Pandora's box for me with spirituality because it helped me deal with and cope with and come to terms with a lot of stuff that had happened and the changes I was going through.
Hmm.
And I went through the whole dark night of the soul. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Yeah, I went through that, and that lasted for a couple years. It was really, really rough. But
Hmm.
when I got through that, I felt like a different person.
Sorry,
Um,
what is that? Sorry, the Dark Night of the Soul. What is that?
so it's kind of like an emotional purging of all the negative energy that you kind of accumulated, all the negative thoughts, all the negative experiences, kind of like emotional baggage that you
Hmm.
just release, right? But for some of us, because you become accustomed to that negative emotional distress, it's hard to let it go because that also means letting people go,
Hmm.
letting, changing your life around. And that means releasing a lot of stuff that you just don't need. And that's kind of scary to do it all at once. But I knew I had to get through that in order to deal with what I had to deal with in my future.
Hmm.
So once I got through that, I was able to handle what was going on in my house paranormally.
Yeah.
And so maybe we should start at when I was younger.
Yeah, I want to get into that. So I'm going to write that down so I don't forget.
Okay.
But before I forget as well, I want to go back to the dream that you had when you saw the brothers, which first made you reach
Okay. Yeah.
out, which is
Yeah.
which is wild. And again, it's a synchronicity. It's coincidence. Don't think so. Don't believe in them.
Hmm.
But it is very strange how you had that dream 2 days before I put the episode out.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
That.
And when I had that dream, I thought it was a dream about my grandson.
Hmm.
But and so for those 2 days, I was thinking, what's going to happen to my grandson? Is something going to happen to him? But once I heard that episode, the worry stopped instantly. I
Wow.
knew then it was about them, not about me
That's
or my
so
grandson.
wild. That's so
It
wild.
just it just
Yeah.
vanished.
Did they look like, because they're the brothers from the Supernatural Station podcast? I might have to get you in touch with them actually, just so maybe you can collaborate with
Yeah.
them as well and share that
They
with
were
them.
they were Hispanic children.
Hmm.
The family was Hispanic. Um,
Interesting.
the two little boys had dark brown hair. The mother, remember I told you the mother had brown hair, but it was like either wavy, naturally wavy, or it was like she had curls in it, like she had a curling iron curl her hair.
Hmm.
She had a red top. Um, I think the book bag was either a grayish or a bluish color.
Hmm.
And I remember the school and I remember the black top and I remember the family members running to the school with the little boy and the mom because I don't, in the dream, they didn't live that far. They must not have lived that far from the school.
Hmm.
And I just remember the little boy, his hair was messed up, his little face was red from being slapped around, his clothes were like disheveled. And I could just feel what everybody's feeling, like sadness, anger, relief that he's okay. And the mother was just like so like in shock of what happened to her son.
That is wild. So
Yeah,
you're listening to the brothers share that experience, and it just sort of clicked.
it clicked. Like something just said that was what you dreamt about.
Wow, man. And do you often have dreams like that where they sort of
Oh yeah, we have to do a whole different episode on dreams because
let's go?
oh, some of the dreams I've had are
Dreams are wild.
crazy,
Yeah,
crazy. Yeah, I've
yeah.
had precognitive dreams. I've had dreams about being in other worlds. Sometimes my
Interesting.
husband is with me, sometimes he's not with me in those worlds. I've had dreams where I've seen different types of like technology. I've just
Oh wow.
yeah, I've had
Yeah,
some deep
yeah.
dreams.
Interesting. Because the dream state is so strange. And I used to be one of these people that just used to think, oh, it's just a dream, dreams are dreams. But I've completely switched since,
Oh
especially
yeah.
since doing the podcast as well. Dreams seem to be connected to the supernatural, to the spirit world, to whatever it is. It seems to be dreams are so much more than just dreams, and
And
there are dreams that for me that feel just like a normal dream or whatever a normal dream
hmm
is. But then
hmm
sometimes you'll have a dream which affects you, and it's a completely different feeling to a normal dream. You know, it's like, I don't know, it's like you were living in that moment at that time. It's very strange. And I've had a number of
Well,
dreams like that, which
I,
change you, you know?
I've often said to my family, sometimes it feels like it takes most of the day to get yourself back from that dream because it feels like you left a part of yourself in that dream.
Hmm.
And that,
Yeah.
it takes most of the day to get your energy back, like to get yourself back. I can't explain it. It's like you don't fully come out a full person.
Hmm.
Sometimes you feel like a part of you is just back there in that dream world.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's really draining too,
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
and disorienting.
Yeah, you can wake up feeling like you've just had this long sleep, but you've
Yes,
you've been through something. You know,
yeah,
a dream can affect your
definitely.
your your mood,
It really
your
can.
daily mood.
It
Yeah.
really can. And when I have those dreams, it's the one thing I would say is that I would give anything to be able to have a full night's sleep without dreaming because I have 2 to 3 different vivid dreams each night. My
Wow.
husband does not remember one dream, which I mean, I wish,
Yeah.
but not me. I dream constantly, like every night I dream
Wow.
and I can remember a lot of them.
Without fail, you will have those dreams every
Oh
night.
yeah, yeah.
Wow. Interesting.
Um, and so, and I tell him about some of my dreams, and he's just he gets so weirded out. Some of them can be so realistic, and some of them are actually like some of them come true. And so those type of dreams, they really stay with you. You
Hmm.
don't forget about those dreams because they have become real.
Hmm. Do you get those moments where like you'll experience something, and then it takes you back to your dream? You're like, I've seen this before, or
That happened today. I will have sometimes I will have precognitive dreams and I will wake up, but it's like something gets me to forget it. But I know I've dreamt something that I'm supposed to remember. And so today, my husband and I had to go shopping. One of his family members passed away recently, and we had to go, get him a suit for the funeral.
Mhm.
And as soon as I touched the shirt that I picked for him, the dream came to me that I've dreamt it. I've dreamt it. I said, and I looked over at him and he said, what? And I said, I know I've dreamt this. I know that I know that I know that I've dreamt this, that this has happened. I've dreamt of this before. And
Wow.
he's just like, okay, whatever, you've dreamt of it, but it's that feeling that it's a feeling that hits you. It's like a
Hmm.
wave of knowing, a wave of deja vu. Uh,
Yes.
you just know I've done this before.
And it's a very strange feeling. Yeah,
It is. It totally
it's
catches you
very,
off guard.
yeah.
You're just going about
Oh,
your
my
business
Siri's
and
just come up. Get off, Siri.
then
Ah, sorry about that. My Siri just
well,
came
that's
up there.
okay.
They must have thought I called for him,
The
but I
woo
didn't.
is interrupting us.
Yeah, they're coming. They're trying to they're trying to stop us.
Yeah.
We're getting close to answers. That's why.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it is strange. That's very strange. So like you sort of you picked up the shirt and you felt you'd had that moment already.
It's like it's like an echo.
Hmm.
When you're in a cave and you throw your voice out and you hear that echo, but you can almost like feel that echo.
Hmm.
So when I touched the shirt, the dream came back to me very fast. Like it just swept through my mind. And I said to my husband, I know I've done this before. I've dreamt about doing this before. I The thing is, you think that when you have a precognitive dream that you're going to remember exactly when it's going to happen, where it's going to happen, but you really don't all the time. Not
Hmm.
all the time. until it happens, and then you remember you've had the dream of doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. You may not remember the dream at all, but
Yeah.
it's like in that moment, you know that you've dreamt that and you know that you've been there. And
Right,
it might not even be a dream, you know, it might just be like you feel like it's a dream.
right.
It's very weird. And
Now, I've had also dreams where I do remember I didn't know exactly when it was going to happen, but it happened. I remember dreaming about Katrina, the Hurricane Katrina, before it even happened.
mhm,
And that dream really, really scared me. It stayed with me for weeks. I think I dreamt about it about 2 weeks before it happened. And when I read on the news what happened, I just couldn't believe it. And when something like that happens, what do you do? Like, you can't stop it from happening. It's going to happen,
mhm,
right? I
mhm,
mean, I'm just one person. How can I stop something so big, so major?
mhm,
So in the dream, I dreamt that I was a small child, and I dreamt that my family and I were trying to crawl up to the top of the house through the attic. And we had to go to the top of the house because everything was being flooded with water. And it was a major like rainstorm coming down. And I remember slipping on the roof and almost falling into the water. And now the water was reaching almost up as high as the roof. And I remember this elderly man grabbing my hand and pulling me back to the top of the roof. And I remember just sitting there on top of the roof, crying and crying and just being so totally overwhelmed with what was going on. There
mhm.
were cars in water passing by the house. There were people screaming. I don't even know what happened to the other family members. I just remember being me and the old man on top of the roof. And when I dreamt that, I didn't know. When I woke up the next morning, it was just so heavy on my heart. I didn't know how to um, process it. I didn't know if it was actually going to happen or if it was just one of those bad dreams you have, you know?
Mhm.
But then a couple weeks later, I saw some of the scenes of Katrina and I saw what happened to that whole area. It was demolished. And again, when I saw that, I realized that was the dream I had. That was the dream.
Wow. Yeah.
And again, the fear goes away.
Mhm.
Once I see that it the dream happened, the dream came to reality, it just the fear goes away. The nervousness, the anxiety goes away.
Interesting. Wow. So you was actually in the you were seeing it through someone else's life,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah.
Wow. That's wild. I'm not sure I've had that where I've been someone else in my dream. Maybe I have.
Oh yeah. I've been other people. I've seen other people, like seen how they experience things. I sometimes can be the person and still see what's going on the outside in my dreams.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I've had some really, really wild dreams.
Dreams
Um,
are what, and they're connected to like obviously abductions, alien abductions, and stuff like that. Dreams seem
yeah,
to be connected there.
yeah.
Um, yeah, very strange. You can go down some
Oh,
rabbit holes
oh yeah.
with
Oh my
dreams.
gosh. I mean, the dreams I've had, I mean, they can be connected to so many things, but at the same time, it may not even be one thing.
Hmm.
It could
Hmm.
be a number of things. And I used to wonder, who are these people in my dreams? Where do I get these faces from? I don't recognize them. I don't know who they are. And I've had other people tell me, well, when you're watching TV, you see faces and your brain remembers them, and then they, insert them in your dreams. And some of that, maybe from time to time, yes, but other times, no,
Hmm.
no,
Yeah,
no, I don't think so.
it's interesting. I mean, they say you only see faces in your dreams that you've seen. But
Hmm.
I'm not sure I believe that. I'm not sure because
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how they would know that either, you know?
Mm,
I don't know how they can, because you can't see people what they're dreaming, you know? Um,
right.
it's wild. It's very interesting. It's very interesting that you saw the brothers' experience and then that clicked with
Oh
you a
yeah,
couple. That's
that really surprised me. Um, and like I said, I mean, I just want to say so much, but it's just like
yeah, that's cool. That's
it just
cool.
ties into everything. Like,
Should we go to the start
yeah, let's
where
go to the start.
this all started for you?
So, as far as I can remember, I've been having vivid dreams since I was a little girl. But my story starts where I was raised in the western part of the US. I was raised by my aunt and uncle because my mother and father had already had four other children prior to me coming into this world, and financially, they just couldn't do it. So my aunt and uncle raised me for a number of years. But I had a really rough time. My aunt was very abusive, verbally, mentally, emotionally. We did not get along. Um, but my uncle was very kind to me, but he kind of just went with the flow. He didn't really argue a lot with my aunt as far as her behavior. He tried to step in sometimes, but he was just kind of too laid back to argue with it. So when I was a little girl, I learned how to meditate before I even knew what it was. I remember going to the back of the house and sitting down on the grass. And I remember like being so traumatized after being hit or yelled at or, you know, just being chastised for something. And I remember just going to the back of the yard and just sitting down on the grass. And I remember telling myself, just close your eyes and listen to your breath. Now, mind you, I didn't even know what meditation was. Matter of fact, I didn't know what the term meant until maybe 10, 15 years ago. So I didn't know I was meditating. So that's how I learned how to cope with the trauma that was happening in my life. And I remember one time I opened my eyes and I wasn't at home. I don't know where I was, but I opened my eyes and I guess I was in the sky. I don't know where I was, but all I saw was clouds around me. And when I looked straight ahead, I saw a city on top of clouds. And I said to myself, I want to go there. I want to leave. I want to go live there. I don't want to be where I'm at. So I felt myself being propelled towards the city. And it wasn't a modern city. It was a very old city, ancient city, kind of like Middle Eastern type setting. And I saw this really tall castle-like building, and I was determined to get to it, but I was stopped. Something stopped me. Something said no. And I tried again to go towards the city, and something said no again. And just just as quick as it happened, the city disappeared and I was back in the backyard. So I don't know what that was, that vision. I call it a
Wow.
vision. I really don't know what that was.
Wow. I mean,
Um,
firstly, that's amazing that you kind of taught yourself meditation without
yeah,
knowing. It's like a natural thing.
yeah.
Wow.
I didn't know what else to do. I didn't know what else, how else. I didn't feel protected. I just felt like everything was so overwhelming and I had to learn to do something to control all that pent up emotion.
Hmm.
Now I was about 7, 8 years old. Now I think that is what opened me up to the other things that happened. So I also remember around that time I was having nightmares. Now, the one thing my aunt did do is she made us kids, all me and my cousins, all go to church, although she didn't go to church. But I still don't know where I got the idea or the impression for the dreams I started to have. And I used to have nightmares about being in a dark room, laying on a table, and hooded beings with knives were going to kill me. And I would scream and scream and scream as they were approaching me. Then I started to recite a verse in the Bible, and I would say it over and over and over again. And I remember in the dream, these white beings. Now I couldn't call them angels because they didn't have wings. They were white, light beings, four of them, three or four of them, would take me off the table, surround me, and they would say these, I would, I guess they were words. I don't know what it is they said. I don't know if it was an audible thing. I don't know. But as soon as they said those things, those beings disappeared. So I had these nightmares for a couple of years, and I don't know where they came from. I don't know why I had them, but I did. So that was part of the trauma as well that I was going through.
So,
So
so was that like a reoccurring dream, like the same dream happening over and over?
it was the same dream happening over and over. And every time I was saved by these light beings. So let's move forward. And I was in the first and second grade, and the trauma was so much that I wouldn't do my work in school, but I knew how to do it. So the teachers thought it was a language barrier because I'm Hispanic. So they thought maybe I just didn't know English. So they had me tested, and I tested above average for a child. So I went and got some further testing. And when I got tested, I was in the second grade. When they finished with my test, they said I had like fifth grade equivalency. So they wanted to move me up to the fifth grade. Now, mind you, you're a little kid to, second grade. You look at the fifth graders like they're grown-ups, right? They're
Hmm.
big kids.
Yeah.
So I said, no, I flat out refused it. So they put me in advanced classes, and I flourished and I did well. Um, I had a good few years in elementary school, and then I get to junior high school, and the dreams were coming back. Dreams about, it's so weird to talk about it because I was having dreams about the Virgin Mary.
Hmm.
I was having dreams about apocalyptic things happening in the future. And I just wanted to stop those dreams. So I began the breathing all over again, to calm myself down. I was kind of awkward too, but I still had a good number of friends. So the next strange thing that happened was in sixth grade, I met a girl, and she was from the city. I lived in a small town, and she was from the city. She moved into our small town because her mom and her dad were divorced, and they couldn't afford to live in the city anymore. So they came to live in our town, and we got along really well. She was a beautiful, beautiful young lady. She was tall and very, for her age, she was very voluptuous, what I would say. And she used to get a lot of attention, but she was still like kind of like a kid, she still had that kid mentality. And she and I would just hang out and play and stuff like that. So about a year after I met her, she said she wanted to move back with her dad. And she said, if you ever miss me, write me a letter. And I said, okay. And she moved away, and I started having dreams about her visiting me. So I said, I think she's going to come visit me. This was about 6 months after she moved away. I said, I think she's going to come visit me. So the dreams told me this exact date she was going to come and visit me. And so that morning, I said to one of my friends, I think my friend is going to come visit me. And they said, what? Like, where did you get that from? Like, do you even talk to her? Do you even write to her? I said, no, but I had this weird dream that said, she's going to come see me. And they're like, yeah, okay, whatever. Well, wouldn't you know, she came to visit me that same exact day.
Wow.
So she came to the school. Back then we didn't have fences or gates, or we didn't have a whole lot of like, everything was open. It was an open plan. The football field was open. Anybody can walk through it. The playground, they still had a playground in the junior high school. So, and I was sitting on top of the jungle gym, and I saw her walking towards our school. And I said to my friends, look, she's coming, she's coming. And they just stood there like in disbelief. They could not believe that she was actually here visiting me. And so the girl comes, walks up to the playground, and she's like, you don't even look surprised to see me. Like, I thought you would be happy. And so I told her about the dream, and she got really weirded out. She did not like that. And she's just like, try to brush me off. She's like, oh, okay, whatever, like, whatever. So, we hung out for that day, and she went back home. She said, I'm going to come back. And I said, okay, come visit me whenever. We had a good time. 2 months later, I had the dream again. I dreamt that she was going to come visit me. Now, this time I told my friends the day ahead of time. I said, my friend's going to come visit me tomorrow. And I said, and I want you guys to see she's going to come. So the next day, my friend came to visit me, and they ran up to her because she walked through the football field onto the playground, and they're screaming to her. She dreamt of it. She dreamt that you were coming to visit. She said you were going to come visit her. And my friend is just so weirded out. Like, it's to the point where she almost looks like she wants to turn around and not visit me because it just creeped her out. But I think something changed that day because I think she was superstitious, and I think that she just thought, something wasn't
Mhm.
right with me, or I don't know. Um, because I think she only came one more time, and I knew she was coming.
Wow.
And that third time, she's like, let me guess, you knew I was coming. And I said, yeah, but this time she changed it up. The third time, and I knew she was going to do that. In the dream, she went to my house first and then came to the park. So I said to my aunt, I think I'm going to have a friend come visit me today. Could you tell her I'm at the park? And my aunt is just because I didn't get a lot of friends coming over. Everyone knew my aunt in that town. They knew she was very hard to deal with.
Mhm.
So my aunt just kind of looked at me, was okay, whatever. So my friend went to my aunt's house first, and my aunt told her, she said you were coming, and she said to meet her at the park. And
That's wild.
that was the last visit I got from her. I never saw her again.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what do you think you're psychic? Do you think that's a psychic ability? What do you think that
That
is?
that has been a question I've been asking myself for quite some time. Um, you know, I can't say yes and I can't say no. I think I'm in the in between because I have so many other things going on, within myself that I can't say no, but I
Hmm.
do think that something's going on there.
Wow.
Um,
That must have been so strange for your friends that you were telling you're telling them that your friend's going to come, and they're like, okay.
Yeah,
And then she
yeah,
did when you said it was going to happen.
yeah,
That
yeah,
must have been like mind blowing for them.
yeah. She did not like that. In the Hispanic world, we're very superstitious,
Hmm.
and there's a lot of folklore about witches and about, different things, and it can creep us out sometimes.
Hmm.
And it's crazy because I was confident that I knew that she was coming, and I think that's what bothered them, that I just knew,
Yeah.
and I guess they didn't like that.
It'd be interesting to know if your friend that was visiting
Hmm.
got any feelings, or you know, if she sort of had an urge to come to you at that moment, and she might have found that weird as well, knowing that you knew she was coming and she had that feeling. I don't know if that makes sense, but
That'd be interesting. I never thought about that. The
yeah.
thing is that I had so many friends that in the beginning I missed her a little bit, but I kind of got over it. So it's not like I was calling out to her.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's more like I kind of, and see, I do this back and forth thing where who's the sender and who's the receiver,
Hmm.
because when you're communicating that way, you don't know where it starts and where it's being transferred. You
Yeah.
really don't know. It's kind of like that whole chicken and egg question, what
Hmm.
came first.
Yeah.
I would, if I had ever seen her again, I would have loved to hear what she had to say about that. But she was so creeped out, she didn't even want to talk about it. She
Yeah.
just would not, like, she would cut me off. She just like, I don't want to even think about, what
Hmm.
you were doing.
Hmm.
So,
Interesting.
yeah. So, okay. So I found out, and this is another weird thing. I found out where I lived intersected with Elm Street. And if you're familiar with Nightmare on Elm Street,
I am. I am.
my street intersected with Elm Street.
Wow.
Yeah. And you know what? Later on, I can email you my address from when I
Hmm.
was growing up and you can check it out for yourself. But I never put two and two together up until about 10 years ago when I was talking to one of my cousins and we were talking about some of the weird things that happened on our street. And so she's like, things have really changed in our town. And so I went on Google to go and see what the town looked like now. And I realized, oh my God, we lived right there next to Elm Street.
Wow.
So
And
yeah,
and I
that's
mean,
creepy.
for anyone that doesn't know those films, I'm sure most people will know The Nightmare on Elm Street, but
Yeah,
it's very much dream based attacks.
yeah,
These things happen in the dream state.
yeah.
That is interesting. Wow.
So, okay, so when I was a little girl, we had this woman she was kind of like homeless, but she wasn't. There was a woman called Crazy Alice. She lived behind us. So we had a house, then there was an alleyway road, and behind that alleyway road was another row of houses. Alice lived behind us. So Alice, the story goes that she was a nurse in the Vietnam War, and she fell in love with a soldier. They promised each other that when they got through the war that they would come home and get married. Well, he got killed. She kind of went crazy, uh, because she was so beside herself. She came home and she began using drugs and she drank a lot. So Alice used to scare me because I think there was more to Alice than just the drinking and the drugs. I think there was something messing with her. So Alice lived with her mother in the house, but Alice bought a trailer to put in the backyard because she didn't like living inside the house. She said there were people talking in the house, and she said she didn't like them.
Hmm.
Now, Alice didn't really get along with anyone. She would like yell at us and cuss at us and, poke fun at us. But my uncle always taught me to be respectful towards her. And so when Alice's mother died, Alice got even worse. Well, I realized that Alice used to be outside at nighttime. She used to go outside and sit outside her camper, and she used to smoke cigarettes, and she would be outside talking and talking and talking. And I can hear someone talking with her, but there was no one with Alice living with her.
Whoa, what you like? You'd hear another voice.
I'd hear another voice.
Whoa.
So this is going to tie into something else that happened to me in that house. Okay, so uh, they say Alice started a fire because she wanted to kill herself because she was so depressed. Well, the fire demolished the house and it demolished, the trailer, and Alice died in the trailer. Um, Not long after that, I started having the nightmares. And I pushed these nightmares out of my mind because they didn't feel like nightmares. They felt like the real thing. They were very vivid, very lucid. So my aunt used to ask me to take out the trash. And as children, you wait till the last minute to do it. I used to wait at nighttime to do that. The alley from the back door to the alley was about 100 feet away. And so I would take the trash cans, take all the bags of trash, and I would take them to the trash cans. Then I would hurry up and run back to the house because the light from the back door only lit up the steps. The rest of the yard and the driveway was pitch black. So I was scared. So I started having dreams about someone calling out to me. And I thought it was Alice's voice, but it wasn't. So I would get out of bed. I would walk. Okay, so the layout of the house was it was a ranch house, but my uncle, who was in construction, had paid someone to do an unfinished basement. And so me and my cousin, well, I had other cousins. We all, because the family was so big, we all, slept in the basement. Some of the rooms were finished, some of them were unfinished. Ours was like partially finished. We had walls, but we didn't have doors in our room. Okay, so I was able to get out of the bed. I walked up the flight of stairs to get to the first floor. And the back door was directly, you could see the back door directly once you got up the steps. So every single time it happened, the back door was unlocked. Door was open, the screen door was always unlocked. I would go out the screen door, I would walk down the steps, I would go down the driveway. Once I hit that alleyway, there were there was a small little mini forest next to Alice's house. Once I got to the end of that driveway and near the alleyway, there were three beings in that mini forest. There were two large owls, human-sized owls, and a woman standing in between those owls. And she would tell the owls, go get her. Now, what I saw was, I can see, how can I explain it? Have you ever seen like in a movie where I think it's Wonder Woman, where she throws the rope, that fiery rope out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So these owls threw the rope out to me and it wrapped around my waist. And they would pull me towards them and I would scream and fight and scream and fight to get out of the fiery cord that they were pulling me with. And so every single time I had that dream, I managed to get away somehow because something told me once I touched the wooded area, once I got to that wooded area, I it was going to be over with. I wasn't going to come back. So I always somehow managed to break free of that cord, run back into the house, lock the door, and go back to my room. The third time it happened, I couldn't break free. And I don't remember what happened after that. But these owls, I've never told anyone until I started listening to some of the stories on different podcasts. And I was like, oh my God, someone else saw these. These were tall owls. These were at least 5 feet tall owls. And the woman between them, I don't know who she was. I don't think it was not Alice. That was not Alice. This woman looked like a witch, not a witch with a hat. Just this, she gave off this energy like she was a witch.
Wow. Could
So
you see her like facial features and
I
stuff?
could not see her facial. I could see her silhouette.
Mm-hmm.
And she had a long coat on. Now, and see, it kind of confuses me because when you hear about the Hat Man, he has a long coat and he kind of has a hat, right?
Mm-hmm.
This person didn't have the hat, but they had the coat, the long coat. So I don't know what that was. I don't know what that was about.
That's wild. And you could tell it was a female. Like it had,
It was a female,
yeah.
but they didn't speak with their mouth. They spoke with, you know, I guess their mind, I'm assuming, but it wasn't English. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know what it was, but I understood when she told them, when she looked at, looked over at them, say, go get her. I understood that's what she was saying.
Yeah. Yeah. Man.
And that just terrified me for the longest time. I think I pushed it out of my mind for a long time until I started listening to some podcasts
Mm-hmm.
and I started remembering that dream.
Owls come up very often in the supernatural and the paranormal.
Yeah.
Like you hear that so often. I don't know if you heard the
Mhm.
episode that I done with Mark Anthony Wyatt. One of his episodes, he was driving along a Cornish countryside
Yes.
road and he came across
Yes.
a 5 foot owl, however, a big
Hmm.
owl,
Hmm.
human like. He described it as like
Yep.
human like as well, and it kind of flew at the car, and that had a big impact on his life. You know that
Oh,
that
yeah.
that moment. Um,
When I heard his episode, and see, this is why I think that people are going to say to you, she's faking it. Like she listened to all your episodes and she's taking
no,
things.
no,
No, no, no, no, no, no, no.
no, not at all. No, these
She's
things correlate. They seem to be a connection
everywhere.
between all the supernatural and the
Hmm.
paranormal. You know,
Hmm.
and so many people experience it. So many
Hmm.
people. Not everyone wants to talk about it, you know, but I think
Hmm.
more people are willing to talk out now and share their experiences. And the more people that
Yes.
do, the better, because it helps so many people. Because someone will listen to this and they'll say, "I experienced that," or you'll hear
Hmm.
it somewhere else, and
Yeah.
it really is. That's what I think is so special about sharing these
Hmm.
experiences. But that is wild. Do you think that experience there was connected in some way to Alice? Do you think that was something that maybe she experienced and was
Yes.
pulled in? Yeah.
I think whatever was in that forest, it took her. I think it took her because when she was sober, she spoke normally, but when she was drinking and doing the drugs, it's like she became a totally different person. And she used to scare me so bad. Um, I was a really, really independent kid. Like I learned to be independent and take care of myself. And so I would just hang around town and walk around and, every time we had a function at the school, I would go to it, and, just to get out the house, because of the energy there.
Mhm.
And when I came home, it would be dark. Now I had two choices. I somehow I always wanted to get off of Elm Street to turn into my house because Elm Street creeped me out because it always felt like someone was walking behind me. You can hear feet steps, like feet walking behind you. So I had a choice of going down the alleyway, which was dark, to get to the back door, or going through the front door, which was pitch black as well, because the lights on our street, they had lampposts on one end of the street and on the other end of the street, and there were no lampposts in between that. So it was dark in that middle, and we lived in the middle. Sometimes I would hear, if I took the alleyway route, I would hear Alice laughing in the dark. Oh my gosh, it used to
Oh,
scare the crap out of me.
I
Oh,
bet.
I hated that. I
Wow.
used to, then her laugh, it was like a cackle. Oh, it used to scare me so bad.
Man, was
And
was that the actual street where Nightmare on Elm Street was set? Is it the
I don't
actual?
think so. I'm not sure. I really don't know. I don't know the history of that,
Mhm.
how he got to that, but his is based on a dream too.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah,
So I
which
don't
is
know.
very
I don't,
interesting.
yeah. And
So,
then another thing that happened, there was something in that house. There were things in that house because I had nightmares about that house that were also part of my spiritual process.
hmm hmm
So, as I was telling you, my cousins and I, so I had three cousins who were, um, I don't know the proper way to say this. They were mentally, you know,
hmm
I don't want to say the R word, but
yeah,
they were very, they didn't speak that well.
hmm
And so my it was my cousins and I, my female cousin and I, she was a little bit slow as well. She and I shared a room. Then there was a like a playroom in between our room, and then there was my two male cousins who were mentally challenged. Um, they had their own room, and there was one light in that basement that lit up a hallway in between all the rooms. And my aunt would leave a night light on in my male cousin's room so they wouldn't get scared. And I swear something was turning off that hall light every single night. So I slept in a bunk bed. When the lights would all get turned off, even in their room, in the boys' room and in the hallway, the whole basement would get pitch black. Something was turning off all the lights. And when that happened, my male cousins would start crying because they were scared. So their crying would get louder and louder. So then I would have to literally in pitch black darkness crawl out of my bunk bed, slide my hands across the walls to get to the switch light. And every single time I had to walk my way down the walls to get to the switch light, something would touch me. It would play with my hair. It would touch my hands. I could feel something moving through my legs. It was, oh my God, it used to scare the crap out of me. And at first, I thought it was my aunt doing it. And I thought, why is she turning off the lights? Like, it scares my cousins. Like, I know, like, times are tough and everything, but why would you turn off all the lights? It's pitch black down here. Like, God forbid one of us has to go to the bathroom. We're going to trip and fall and hurt ourselves. But then she started asking me, was I doing it? Because she would wake up and
Whoa.
she would hear the boys crying. And I said, no, why would I do that? Those are my cousins. I wouldn't do anything to hurt them. Like, why would I turn off the lights? So it happened so often that my aunt would sit on the stair step and she would sit and wait for it to happen. And she would stay up, sit on the steps till about 2 or 3 in the morning, and nothing would happen. She would go up the steps, go lay down in her room, and the lights would go off. And she knew I wasn't doing it. That's when she knew I was not doing it. So I
Man,
don't know what was doing that.
that is
So,
wild.
I mean, I don't even know what caused it to stop because suddenly it would stop. Like stuff would start, stuff would stop.
Hmm.
So
That seems
I
to
have,
happen with the paranormal.
yeah.
That really does. There seems to be like fits and spurts. For some reason,
Hmm.
a lot of stuff happens and then it stops. It happens in this house, you know. I mean,
Hmm.
now that things
Hmm.
happen and the kids get scared, the wives get scared, I get scared,
Hmm.
and then it stops for a while, and then things happen again, and
Yeah.
it's very strange, very
Yeah.
strange.
So, it stopped. Um, I wonder if whatever was in that house was also affecting my aunt and how she was,
Hmm.
because she was just she had fits of rages that were uncontrollable. Like we didn't know what, hormonal or not. Like some of the rages she would go through, I don't know if the house had an effect on that,
Hmm. Hmm.
the mood. The house just always felt sad and or angry, or like I dreaded going home every day from school. So by the
Man,
time I was 15 years old, I ended up leaving. I moved out with a cousin, one of my older cousins, and I went to the East Coast. And, I spent a couple years just trying to get myself together, trying to get my mind right, trying to get back to normal, find normalcy, right? I started dating what would end up being my kid's father. And what I didn't know is, I was a very forgiving person. So I didn't know he had a drinking problem. But when I found out he had a drinking problem, I broke up with him. So he came to the house, days and days and days and days afterwards, begging me to take him back. And I remember one time, the last time he begged me, I was close to saying, like, yes, I'm going to do it. And then I heard a voice in my mind say, if you go back with him, your life is never going to be the same. And I ended up going back with him, and my life was a mess because of that.
man.
So, one of the weird things that happened when I was with him is my cousin and I lived in an apartment complex. And, as teenagers, you don't have a whole lot of privacy. So, my boyfriend um, had a friend who worked in the apartments. They were like the maintenance men. And he said, oh, there's this apartment that's empty. Nobody, we can't keep people in it. They're always moving out, it's fixed up. There's no furniture in it, but if guys want to just hang out, you can hang out. So he gave my boyfriend the keys, and we went there. And when he opened up the door, I felt something. I just felt like something wasn't right. I felt like somebody was watching us the minute we opened up that door. So we go in, we close the door, and I said to him, I have to use the bathroom. And he's like, okay. I said, but I need you to go check out the rest of the apartment. There are no lights. The electricity was not on. So he said, well, I'll walk you to the bathroom and then I'll check the rest of the rooms out. I said, okay. So I used the bathroom. I went back to the living room near the door. And he said, okay, I'm going to go check out the rest of the rooms, make sure nobody else is here. I said, okay. The next thing I know, he comes running out from the back bedroom, the farthest, there was a bedroom at the farthest part of the hallway, past the bathroom. He comes running out and he says, run. And I said, what? He said, let's get out of here. We have to get out of here. And I said, why? He said, look. I looked over to where the bedroom door was. There was this massive black being with blood red eyes staring at us. Now, his head touched the top of the ceiling. His head was higher than the frame of the door, and he was staring at us. And oh my God, my heart dropped. So we opened the door and we ran. We ran and ran back to my cousin's apartment. And I said, "What was that?" And he said, "I don't know, but I'm glad we got the F out of there." And I remember it like it happened yesterday. The funny
Wow.
thing is, my two kids saw the same being years later in another apartment in another state.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Whoa. And that was like a shadow figure with red eyes.
I mean, I called it a creature because, I think about this because it makes me wonder about Bigfoot,
Mm-hmm.
how Bigfoot can, whether he's real, like tangible real, or he's spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
But when people describe Bigfoot, I didn't see the hair, but I saw the mass. I saw how tall it was, how big it was, and the red eyes. And people say Bigfoot has red eyes.
Mm-hmm.
It makes me wonder if the apartment complex itself sat on some type of ancient gravesite, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe that was a spirit being that was angry that we were there.
Interesting. Yeah. This thing looked like a Bigfoot.
Well, the mass, like
Mm-hmm.
it was huge. It was big. It was big and it was blacker than black.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And but it like had like broad shoulders. It had the big head. I couldn't see the facial features, but I could see the eyes. The eyes were red, red, red. And it just the the top of the head was at the top of the ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
All the way down, it was black. And it was standing catty corner from the bathroom door to the bedroom door. So, and it radiated anger and negativity.
Mm-hmm.
And it scared me so bad. And it's funny because his friend said he ended up giving the keys back to his friend and saying, telling him what happened. And his friend said, "Wow, that's weird because we can't get people to rent that place for very long. No one stays in there very long."
Whoa. Interesting.
So,
Wow. And it's wild that you felt that energy straight away,
oh
and then
yeah, I
obviously
felt it.
you saw
Oh
that
yeah, I felt
that
it.
that creature, that entity, whatever it was.
Yeah,
That's wild.
yeah. So fast forward, he and I moved to another state, uh, and then we ended up moving into an apartment building, and we didn't stay together. We ended up breaking up, but I took the kids when the kids were about 6 or 7. So I lived in the downtown city. I was downtown. I was where everything was happening. And across from where I lived was a big parking lot, and it was empty. Like it was on the weekends, the city was dead. Like Saturday and Sunday, nobody came to the city. So I would sit on the stoop, on the stair stoop, and let the kids play on in the parking lot because I can see them. They would play on their bikes and they would play with their skates and stuff. So I remember my son saying, "Mom, there's something up in that building next to ours." And I said, "Well, what are you talking about?" I said, "Yeah, there's people up there. Maybe there's someone lives up there." He said, "No." He said, "I saw something big and black with red eyes watching us." And I was like, "What?" He's like, "And it scared me, Mom. It scared me because he was scary looking. He looked angry and mean." And then I started thinking about what happened to me in the apartment, in the other apartment building in another state. So, I was just like, "Okay, okay." So about a month or two later, again, we were outside, the kids were playing, and my daughter started screaming, and I said, "What is it?" And she said, "There's a scary monster up in that building next to the parking lot, and he's black with red eyes." And because she didn't hear my son's story when he first told me, she didn't hear it. So then when she saw it, she screamed because she said it scared her. And she said there's a big black monster. She called him a monster
Hmm.
up in the building next to the parking lot. And he's staring at us and he's got red eyes. And I don't want to be outside anymore. So, of course, I took them inside and we didn't talk about it anymore. But I don't
Wow.
think they really played outside that much anymore. I would just take them out to a park or
Hmm.
somewhere else to play outside of the parking garage area.
That's wild that they both saw the same thing.
Yeah.
And it fits the description to what you saw as well. That's
Mhm.
wild.
So
Man.
my son was he had a lot of energy. The thing is, he had three different times he had to be taken to the emergency room for either a concussion or lacerations to his head because he was so hyper and so he just kept wanting to do flips and play on the jungle gym. And every time he got hurt, luckily it happened in school. It didn't happen at home. But the three times they were always on the side of his head. And so I think those accidents opened him up because he sees things now. He
Hmm.
sees things and he's been seeing things since after those accidents.
Interesting.
Yeah, he's got some interesting stories. Although, when I recently talked to both of my kids, because I have two kids, about the different paranormal stuff that has happened to us in this house, he doesn't want to talk about it too much. And
Hmm.
she completely has blocked it out
Hmm. You hear that
because
so often.
it was just so scary for her.
Yeah. Yeah. And I get it as well. I get it, because
Yeah.
I do feel like as well when you talk about it, you can invite
Hmm.
it more as
Yep.
well. But yeah, no, so I totally get that. But
Hmm.
wow, that's wild.
Yeah.
If,
I'm telling
when
you, there's so many things.
yeah, I know, I want it all. We've been going for over an hour and 15 minutes, I think we've been going for. But I want more if there's more.
Yeah.
If
Well,
if
okay.
you're if
So
you're willing
let's
to share.
Yeah, of course. Okay, so let's move forward to the house we live in now.
Hmm.
And before I even start, let me preface this by saying we could not afford to move when the things started happening. I've never experienced anything this paranormal in my entire life. I didn't
So,
want this house when we first
so is this the
purchased
house you're
it.
you're currently living
Yes,
in
I'm
now?
currently living in. I love it now, but I didn't like it then.
Hmm.
I didn't want to live in this house. My husband picked it because it was close to his job and it was close to all the shopping centers. And he just, he made a good decision because, yes, in the end, with the economy and the way it is, it was a good decision. The very first night we moved in, I put the kids to bed. My daughter slept. Okay, so this is the layout. We have a ranch home, but we have a finished attic, which is a long bedroom. My daughter wanted that room, so I let her have it. And my son has his room next to our room. So the very first night they go to bed, I'm in my bedroom. I'm sorting through stuff, putting stuff away, and I hear something moving around in the living room. So I'm thinking maybe there's a mouse or a squirrel or something is in the house rummaging through the boxes. So after a while, maybe a half hour, I'm thinking it's got to be my husband. Maybe he's home from work. He used to do overnight work. So I go to the doorway and I yell out, "Hon, are you home?" I don't get an answer. So I said, "Okay, maybe I'm just whatever." And this is in the spring, well, maybe around May of 2020. So I go back in the room and I'm sorting through stuff again. And then I hear it again, but this time it's louder. It's like something like boxes are moving, boxes, like someone's searching through stuff in the boxes. And I'm scared because I'm thinking someone broke into our house. They must have seen us move in. They broke into the house. What am I going to do? So I just like, took a deep breath and I grabbed a flashlight that was in my bedroom and I flashed, I went outside my door into the hallway and I flashed it into the living room. Nothing. I turned all the lights on. Nothing. Nothing. None of the boxes were moved at all. At all. The boxes were still in the same position against the walls like I had them before. So I don't know what I was hearing. Finally, around 2-ish, I go to sleep. I wake up at 6 the next morning. I get the kids up. I tell them, I say, you watch TV and eat your cereal. We're gonna leave while I get dressed. We're gonna leave at a certain time. I'm gonna go in the bedroom, I'm gonna get dressed, and then we're gonna leave. Dad's gonna come home and he's gonna drop us all off where we need to go. Okay. I'm in the bedroom getting ready, and my daughter comes running in the bedroom and she's screaming. She says, Mom, I don't know what's going on. And I said, well, what is it? What is it? She said, I think there's something there's something in the living room. And I said, what? So my son comes running in and he's scared. Now, my son is a prankster. So I thought it was him. And he comes running in the room and I said, what are you doing to your sister? Like, we don't have time for this. He said, no, Mom, there's something in the living room. And I was like, okay, my daughter's crying. She doesn't usually cry like that. So I said, okay, stay in the bedroom. I'm going to go check it out. Now, if you've ever seen the Polter or any movie, any horror movie where everything is moving at one time, I used to think that that was so silly. So I go walk into the living room. It sounds like something is rattling all the glass panes in the living room, in the windows. All the windows were rattling. The doorknob was turning back and forth. Something was knocking on the windows at the same time and on the door too. All this is happening at the same time. And I just stood there in shock. And I'm thinking, is this really happening? Like, is this really happening? And I'm scared because I'm like, should I open that door or should I not? Maybe it's an intruder. Maybe it's our neighbors that don't like us, that don't want, like, it was mostly, there were not too many minorities living in the area. So I thought maybe someone was trying to scare us out of our house. I go and grab the door and it shocks me when I touch the door. Like I literally felt like when you electrocute yourself,
Hmm.
that's what it felt like. The windows are
Whoa.
shaking and rattling, and I'm thinking they're gonna explode or something because they're shaking so violently. So I open the door and a puff of smoke floats past me. And the first thing I think of, my uncle had passed away years before, and I thought it was my uncle's spirit because he used to smoke cigars. I thought it was my uncle's spirit coming in through the front door. Now we have an enclosed front porch. I thought maybe my uncle was hanging out in the front enclosed porch. I don't know. I just thought of him. So the smoke swooshes past me and everything comes to a stop. And I can hear my kids just wailing, crying, scared. And I turn on the light in the front porch and I can still smell the smoke. And the door slams shut behind me. And I'm just like, oh my God. And it scared me so bad. So I open the door again. I open the front door and I go and check on the kids. Mind you, I left the front porch light on. So I go and check on the kids. I was like, it's okay. It's okay. Like my heart is beating. I'm scared. I'm just like frightened. I don't know what to say to them. I don't know what to tell them what happened. I don't know what to say to them. And my son's saying, what is that? What was that? What's going on? I said, I don't know, sweetie. I said, let's just calm down. You can, stay in my room with me while I'm getting dressed, but I still got to go to work and you still got to go to school. And dad will be home soon. This is my husband that I ended up meeting after I broke up with the kid's dad. So he comes home and he's like, "What's going on? Why is the?" He said, "Why is the front porch light on?" Right? And I'm looking at him and I said, "I've got something to tell you." And he's like, "Okay." He said, "But while you're doing that, like, let's hurry up. Like, we need to drop off the kids. You need to go to work, and I need to get some sleep." That's all he's worried about, right? So we're in the car, and I'm telling him what happened, and he's like, he doesn't believe me. He's like, no, I don't know what you smelled. I don't know what happened, but no, I don't know. He's like, I think that you're just like, you got it wrong. Like, stuff like that doesn't happen. So I'm just like so angry. Like, why don't you believe me? Like, I don't talk this way. This has never happened to me. Right. And he's just like, whatever. Like, he's just like, he's tired. He wants to go home, go to sleep, and he's just done a long shift, and he's just not trying to hear it. So we go home later on that evening, and my kids are scared. My husband goes to work, and I said, "You go sleep in the bed with me," right? Because if this happens again, like I don't know what I'm gonna do. Like I don't have my husband backing me up. Like the kids are scared. I'm scared. Like I leave all the lights on, and then my husband comes home. He's like, "We can't afford to have all the lights on at night. We can't afford that. We're just getting started in this house." He's like, "You can't really believe in that stuff. You're scaring yourself. Whatever." So the kids do end up sleeping with me for at least 6 months, and then my husband was like, "No, they're too big for this. They got to sleep in their own room." So stuff continued to happen. It wasn't always blatant. It was little things. The cabinet doors opening and closing, dishes falling off the dish rack that should not even be moving. Um, Doors opening. You hear the doors opening and closing, and you don't see them opening and closing, but you hear them. And then the footsteps up in my daughter's room. Okay, so I have so many stories about this house. Okay, starting with my son. Now I knew it was an old house. It was built in like 1950. I started hearing it sounded to me like little feet walking in the vents. Now, I contacted Timothy Renner from Stranger Things about this, and he
Mhm.
wanted to talk to me about it, but we never got around to doing it. Anyways, I started hearing like little feet walking in the heat vents, and I'm just like, that's just the house settling, right? That's just like sometimes the air intake, like maybe it makes the vents just like contract and whatever, right? But I never told anyone that that's what I was hearing at nighttime. This always happened at nighttime. And so my son started having a hard time sleeping. And finally, he said, "Mom, I got to tell you something." And I said, "Yes." He said, "There's something in my room." I said, "What?" He said, "I'm having dreams, but I don't think they're dreams. I think they're real." I said, "Well, what is it?" He said, "There's little people coming out the vents and they're messing with me in my bedroom." I said, "What do you mean, little people?" I said, "Like elves and gnomes?" He's like, "Well, I don't know what to call them, but some of them are really small and some of them are kind of bigger, and they get into my stuff and they play with my face and my hair, and they seem to be getting meaner and meaner." And I was like, what? I said, wait, wait, wait. I said, go back, go back. I said, when did this start? He said, well, I started hearing people walking back and forth in the hallway, and I thought it was Dad. But when I look over to the door, nobody's there. And so he said, then I would start closing my door because I don't want to hear all that walking. It wakes me up. But then they started coming out the vents and they started messing with me. And now they're playing tricks on me because they're hiding stuff and they won't give it back. I said, what do you mean hiding stuff? He said, they hide stuff from you, Mom. And I said, what? He said, yeah. You ever notice stuff goes missing in the house? I said, yeah, but I just thought, I was just forgetful. He said, no, they're doing it to you. And I was like, he said, remember you blamed me for I forget what it was. It was something I was looking for, and I blamed my son because I told you he's a prankster, right? They said, I didn't do it, they did it. And they told me they're going to keep doing it until, so that I can get in trouble because they think it's funny when I get in trouble. And I was like, and I started putting two and two together, and I thought, I am hearing something. I'm hearing something in those vents, and it is true. I'm not going crazy. Again, I told my husband about it, and he's like, "You guys are watching too many, crazy horror movies." He said, "Stop watching that stuff. If it's going to scare the kids, stop doing that. If it's going to scare you, stop doing that." And I said, "No, something's going on here." He said, "I don't know. It's not going on with me, so I don't know what you're talking about." Uh, it started really affecting my son. He went from being a really sweet, playful little boy to very angry, very anxious. It really messed with him. Um, okay, so my daughter was affected as well. She said there was an old woman up in her bedroom and she did not like kids. So, what I used to do is I was very involved in my children's education, and I used to do half hour of book reading time, or if you don't want to read a book, you can do quiet time and play with your toys quietly for a half hour. That would give me a half hour to just peace and quiet. So one day she comes down from her bedroom and I said, well, how was your quiet time? She said, the old lady upstairs told me I can't play with my toys upstairs anymore. And I said, what? She said, that old lady up there, she told me I'm too loud, I make too much noises, and she told me to get out of her room. And I was creeped out. I just didn't know what to say to that. Like, what do you say to your child? Do you say, no, you're wrong, you're dreaming, maybe you fell asleep and you had a dream? No, I didn't know what to say.
Mhm.
So uh, I started babysitting my husband's little cousin, and he was about 5 or 6 years old. It was right before he went into school. And I remember one day I was fixing his lunch and he was in the living room watching TV. I put his lunch on the living room table and kind of just let him pick and snack on it. I went back into the kitchen to get him something to drink, and I heard him say out loud, "Stop staring at me." And I said, "Excuse me, sweetie, what's the matter?" He said, "They're staring at me and I don't like it." I said, "Who?" He said, "The people on the stairs are staring at me and I don't like them." So I said, "Well, what do they look like?" And he couldn't say firefighter. He said, fi. And so around that time, I had gotten my first computer. So I said, fi. He said, helper. They help you. When you're sick. And I said, are you talking about a firefighter? He said, yes, a firefighter. So I said, okay. So I went online and I Googled pictures, right? I showed him pictures of firefighters and they were modern pictures. He said, no. I said, okay. I looked at some pictures of old firefighters. He said, yes, that was a firefighter. And he said there was a nurse and a firefighter up on the stairs. and he did not like them looking at him and watching him while he was eating.
Wow.
So I said to him, I try not to scare him. So I said, well, you tell them to leave you alone and that you don't, they can go away now and that you're going to eat your lunch. And he did that. And they left him alone.
Man.
Yeah.
So all the kids were having these experiences and
Yeah.
seeing that
Yeah.
is what.
Well, then I started allowing my kids to have sleepovers because I kind of wanted, I just wanted them to have friends and friendships, and I
Hmm.
started having sleepovers, my house. I remember my daughter inviting this little girl over to our house that they were playing outside and I asked the little girl, "Did you want to sleep over?" And my daughter said, "Yeah, that's a good idea." And the little girl was like, "Yeah." She hadn't been inside our house at all before. So I said, "Well, we gotta call your mom and ask her if you can sleep over." So we called her mom and she said yes. So the little girl said, "Well, can I use the bathroom?" And I said, "Yeah, sure, go ahead." Now, when I say little, they were about 11 years old. Uh, so she went into the bathroom, and my daughter and I were talking about, hey, what should we make for dinner? Let's make something fun so you guys can enjoy it and this and that. And the little girl ran out of the bathroom and she said to me, "I'm going home now." And she starts crying. And I said, "Wait, wait, 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 wait." I said, "Wait, what's going on? What's happening here?" She said, "There's an old lady in the bathtub. And she told me to get the hell out of the bathroom."
Whoa.
And I said, "What?" And my daughter looks at her, and my daughter probably knows what she's talking about. So I said to my daughter, because this little girl was like, she was explaining herself as she was walking out the door. She was not stopping. So she was walking out the door, and I said to my daughter, "Walk her home. Like, ask her what happened. Like, what happened?" So my daughter walks her around the corner, drops her off. She comes back home. And I said, "So what happened?" She said she was using the bathroom and she was washing her hands and she looked in the mirror and there was an old lady that pulled the shower curtain back. And she said this old lady had ugly, stringy hair. She had a pajamas on, but they were like really old and dirty. And she said that old lady scared her so bad. And the old lady told her, "Get the hell up here." And I said, well, like I didn't know what to say. I said, "Well, what do you think she's going to tell her mom?" Like she's crying. She's like, "I don't know what she's going to tell her mom." She's like, "But I hope I didn't lose a friend because of that old lady." And I said, "Do you think it's the same old lady you saw?" And she said, "Maybe." And she never came back to our house. She never came back.
Yeah, I'm not
She
surprised.
stopped being friends with my daughter.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man. Did the tiny entities that your son was seeing,
Hmm.
did he explain what they look like?
So I spoke to him about it last week. He didn't really want to go deeply into it. He said he believes talking about the stuff brings them back.
Hmm. Yeah.
So he said some were small, some were bigger, like gnome size. And he says they didn't have colorful clothing. They were not colorful. And he said some at first they seemed like they were nice, but then they got meaner. And he said that they were kind of like brownish. So that's all he really said about them. He said that they would just run around his room and mess with his things and play with his stuff and then they got meaner and they started pulling his hair and they started pinching him and scratching him and
Hmm.
he didn't like them. He said he did not like these things. I don't
Man.
know. I don't know if they went. I don't know how they went away. I don't know if they went away. I don't
Hmm.
know. I I don't
Wow.
know how he got rid of them, but I felt bad for him because he was scared. He was
Hmm.
really, really, he was afraid to go to bed at night.
Yeah.
And that maybe that was another reason why I let them sleep with me because he was afraid of that. Um,
Hmm.
so I'm trying to look at my notes to go move forward because I don't want to take up too much of your time.
No, no, not at all. No, yeah,
Okay.
this is
So
fascinating.
the other thing that happened was we had four cats, and these cats would stare at things in the, in the room, and sometimes they would hiss, sometimes they would hide underneath the bed. So right before my grandson was born, maybe 3 years, no, no, around the time my grandson was born, the cats started getting sick and started dying off one by one. And so I felt like that was kind of like an era of time that was ending, right? The funny thing is, the day my fourth cat passed away, a new cat reappeared that looked just like my fourth cat. So the fourth cat was all black with green eyes. We called him Hershey. And I buried him in the backyard. My husband and I did. And I was crying. I was distraught. That was the end of the fourth, all the cats we had. I didn't know what I was going to do without the cats being in the house. And my husband went inside to do something. And I was sitting outside in my patio in the backyard. And I saw a little black face peeking out behind my shed. And I thought I was so distraught, I was seeing things, right? So then I look back, and then I see there's a large tree next to our shed. I see it peeking out from the tree. And I said, there's a black kitten in our backyard. I'm not seeing this. I see it. Like I see it right in front of me. So I run into the house and I say to my husband, you're not going to believe this. There's a black kitten in our backyard. And he's like, no, there's not. You're just like, come on, I know you're sad and everything, but there's not a kitten back there. I've never seen a kitten back there. So I said, let's test it. Let me take a can of tuna and put it outside on the patio, and we can watch from the back window of our enclosed back porch. And you can see there's a kitten, a black kitten with green eyes in the backyard. Sure enough, I put the can of tuna out on the patio, and a black kitten emerges from the back of the shed that looks
Wow.
just like the cat that passed away.
Wow. And did you keep him? Was he?
Of course, he's with us now, little
Yeah.
troublemaker.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we kept
How
him.
cool's that?
Is that
And
something?
again, coincidences. I don't
Yeah,
believe in them.
yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Okay, let me see. Okay, so stuff is going on. People, we go on vacations, every year. And one day, my neighbor, we went away for 3 days. I come back home, and my neighbor said, "Hey, I've been trying to call you." She said, "I see the lights on. I see people moving around in your house. Like I saw the shadows go by the window. Why didn't you pick up your phone?" And I said to her, "I've been away for the last 3 days. I've been away. I don't know what you saw, but nothing was stolen. There's no sign of breaking." Our
Whoa.
our smoke detectors would go off on their own for no reason at all hours of the day. I took the batteries out because I couldn't take it anymore. So I replaced them, the smoke detectors, with brand new ones, modern ones. Same thing happened. Smoke detectors would just go off for no reason at all.
Mhm.
Middle of the night, sometimes early in the
Oh,
morning, sometimes
man.
in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
That drove me crazy. Um, I would sometimes hear, and I can't even describe what this is. In the backyard, it gets pitch black if you don't have your solar lights on. It's pitch black. And in on my neighbor on my right side is my neighbor. She's now the widow. Her yard is extremely black at nighttime, so I have to, flash a light back there, make sure nobody's back there, to look out for her. Um, I heard what sounded to me like critters speaking to each other, back and forth language. It sounded like a language, and it was this high pitched back and forthness. I've looked up different sounds of maybe raccoons, opossums, uh, uh, skunks. They don't make that chattering sound. They don't make that sound. So I don't know what the heck that was. It's
Well,
like a
that was
language that we're speaking, going back and forth, talking to each other. I
interesting.
have no idea what that was. And one time I heard a flute playing in my neighbor's yard, a flute. She doesn't have any kids. The people behind her don't have any kids. It was like the flute sound was coming from the trees in her backyard.
Man.
I've had water squirted at me while I'm working in my garden, and I don't know where that water's coming from. And now, when you get peed on by birds,
Uh-huh.
you think, I'm going to smell it. You're like, it's going to smell disgusting, right?
Hmm.
This water didn't smell like anything. I was sprayed with something, with water in my garden twice. So I don't know if it was that fairies or some kind of.
Well, with what your son was seeing, that
Mhm,
sounds very much like, the gnome, the pixies,
mhm,
the pukwudgies, the fairies,
mhm,
whatever you want to call them.
mhm.
They seem to be the same kind of thing. Tricksters,
Yep.
small. You mentioned that they were like brown color. I've heard that
Mhm.
so many times where people describe these things as being like
Yeah.
brown and small and
Yeah.
very interesting. And possibly
And
that's what you're hearing in the yard as well.
yeah, yeah. Recently, maybe 3 months ago, I was in the backyard kind of looking at stuff, trying to figure out what I'm going to plant as far as flowers and stuff. Now, this one tree that's next to our shed, I hear something moving around, and I'm thinking it's just a squirrel, or maybe it's just a bird fooling around. So I looked quickly to my side, and in my peripheral view, I see a small person peeking from out that tree. Real quick, he
Wow.
was a tannish brown. He had a little hat. He looked like a young male. He had a short sleeve button up shirt. He had overalls and he had little boots. I've never, ever in my life seen anything like that before. And he peeked at me real quick and then he went back behind the tree. And
Wow.
I'm sitting there stunned. And then I look back, and guess what looks back at me? A squirrel. So I'm wondering, did he shift into a
Yeah.
squirrel, or did the squirrel shift into a little man?
Wow. When you say little, was he like the size of a squirrel?
He was about 12 inches tall.
Man. So again, fits with the
So
description
again,
what your son's seeing,
yeah, yep,
the trickster stuff, the water
yeah,
being squirted and stuff like
yeah.
that. It all fits in. It's all very much the same. That is wild.
And
And
then
what
my
was
son, go ahead, no, go ahead.
no, I was going to say, was the clothing that you saw in it? I know it was a quick glimpse, but was it
Hmm.
like colorful or was it like,
It was like a beige tan like clothing.
Mhm.
It was all beige, beigeish brown.
Yes. And that's what I hear so often. It all blends
Yeah.
in. That's so interesting.
And my son has said that I remember him telling me, Mom, one time I woke up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom and I saw a man and a little boy looking inside of our refrigerator. I said, What? I said, What did he look like? He said, The man looked like a farmer and the little boy looked like his son. He had overalls. They were, they had the refrigerator open and they were looking inside our refrigerator. I said, What? He said, Yeah, Mom. He said, and it spooked me. He said, I went right back into my bedroom because I didn't know what to say.
Mhm.
And I was like, Wow. And he said, sometimes I see a black shadow following behind you when you walk into your bedroom. he said in a couple of times, because sometimes I'll take a nap on my bed and in my bedroom and I'll leave the door cracked open, because I have another cat now and she just has to be around me all the time. And if I close the door, she'll just go crazy. And he said, sometimes when you're taking a nap, I see something black and tall peering over at you, just standing by the bed watching you sleep.
Man.
Yeah,
What have you seen anything else inside the house yourself?
I have. So you know how some people talk about the doppelganger type thingy
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
walks around the house. So okay, there was a time where my son was living with some friends and we had spoken that day and he said he was going to hang out with friends and then go back home to his own home. And it was late at night. My husband was at work and I had finished washing some dishes and I look into the living room and he's sitting on the couch and he's smiling at me. And I smile back and then I turn away and then I realize he's not even inside my home. What's he doing here? He's like 20 something miles away at a party, but he's sitting in my living room. Yeah,
Did you turn back and was he still there? Or was
was
he?
not there.
No. Whoa.
Yeah. And my
Man.
husband and I, we both see things at the corner of our eyes. I've seen a small child running around the house playing. And then, oh yeah, my neighbor's house. Oh God, there's so much. I have so much to tell you. Okay, so one night, I also take care of five outdoor cats. They're stray cats, but I take care of them because nobody else does. And their mom had the kittens in my yard, so I feel obligated to take care of them. Anyways, in the middle of the night, I always go check up on them, make sure because they stay in my enclosed porch, but sometimes they wander around the house at night, outside in the backyard. So I always put the flashlight in my neighbor's yard to see, make sure nobody's in her yard. So I turn off the flashlight and it's dark and I see something hunched over by her shed. And next to her shed is a small brick wall that goes across her whole backyard to separate her neighbor's house. And I'm staring at that shed because there shouldn't be anything over there by the shed door, hunched over like that. Next thing I know, this thing jumps up and runs out of her yard, and it looks like a gargoyle. And I'm like, what the hell was that? Like he jumped up, like he sprang up, landed on the ground, and then shot forward just that fast. And I'm
Man.
like, and I'm wondering to myself, like, is she experiencing stuff? Like, I wonder if she's like seeing ghosts. Like, and I asked her one time, I said, "Who's the old lady that died in my house?" She said, "There is no old lady that died in your house." She said, "I've been living here 40 years. I don't know about any lady that died in your house. So I don't know who that lady was that was in my house because she's no longer here."
Mhm.
I said, "No." But
Man.
that kind
That
of shocked me seeing that gargoyle looking thing
yeah.
in her yard.
How big was that, sorry, would you say?
So I would say that thing was about when he was hunched over, like kind of kneeling over, he was about 3 feet tall. And it looked like just something hunched over in the dark, right? Because he was blacker than black. He was
Hmm.
black because it's already dark in her yard. When he knew that I saw him, he sprang up, landed, and then shot forward. And he looked like a gargoyle to me.
Did you see like a face on it?
Not details, no, silhouette of
Hmm.
the gargoyle.
Man.
That was creepy. That just, yeah, that was creepy.
Yeah.
Um,
did your neighbor say if she'd seen anything else or if she'd seen any?
So years ago, we didn't bring up that topic. As a matter of fact, I don't really talk about this stuff with people
Hmm.
other than my immediate family. Oh, I forgot to tell you about my mother-in-law, what she saw, because it affected her too. She's not been into our house to sleep over again. I know, I'm telling you, it's story after story after story. So, like I was saying before, my husband and I and the kids, we used to take overnight trips a few times a year. We asked her to watch the house because we had the cats, the four cats. And she said, yeah, I'll watch the house for a couple of days, feed the cats and stuff like that. So she said the first night, we have this recliner that pulls out and, you can fall asleep in it. And, she was sleeping in it and she was watching TV. It was late at night. And she said she was starting to doze off. And all of a sudden, she sees this mist in the hallway. And she said it's like a cloud-like mist coming towards her. And she said she got so scared. She said she threw the blankets over her head and forced herself to go to sleep because she was so scared. She said that the vibe that this thing gave her was, get out of my house, get out of here.
Man,
I don't want you here. So she's like, it didn't
wow.
have a form, like it didn't have details, but it was like a smoky mist in the hallway coming
Hmm.
towards her. It didn't touch her. Once she threw the blankets over her head and tried to force herself to go to sleep, it didn't do anything to her. It just hovered near the couch, the chair near her.
Wow. And that was that kind of like what you saw when you first moved in there and you had that mist come
No,
towards you?
what I saw was real smoke, like
Oh, okay.
someone had
Hmm.
blowing cigar smoke in your face. What she saw was more like a misty form, like misty, smoky. It wasn't smoke, she said. It was more like a mist, like it didn't have form to it.
Hmm.
It was just like a oblong mist that was coming towards her.
Wow.
Whitish mist. Yeah.
So you said, I don't know if you said it on air or if you said it whilst we were recording. I'm not sure, but you said your husband not really a believer in this stuff, but he is now.
Wasn't then, yeah. He is now because he says now, okay. And then other things that were happening was we would hear something walking up and down the stairway that headed towards my daughter's room. And we would hear footsteps in her room when she wasn't home, like during when she went to school or later on down the line when she was working, we would hear something up there walking back and forth, pacing. He said in the middle of the night, like on his nights off, he would, like he said, he heard the footsteps. He said he would hear stuff falling off the kitchen counters. Um, he said he sees things at the corner of his eye, like something staring at him or peeking through the corners
Hmm.
of the room. Uh, his alarm would go off a lot. His car alarm would go off a lot by itself. He doesn't, it doesn't do that now, but it used to. Um, just hearing stuff. Oh, he always heard me calling his name. All of them. Everyone in my family has heard me calling their name. And so he, little by little, he became,
Hmm.
because other things happened. Okay, the coincidences, right? I remember one time he and I were getting ready to head out somewhere, and I accidentally spilled sweet iced tea where the shift control, the shifter is on the car, where you shift gears,
Hmm. Yeah.
gear shifter. I spilled it inside of there and he was livid. He was so upset. He's like, if you get sweet stuff down there, it's gonna lock up. We're gonna need to go to a mechanic. It's gonna cost money, yada yada yada. So, I cleaned it up and like I'm just thinking to myself, like, I just hope everything's like I hope this thing is gonna be okay, right? So he turns on the car, he puts it in gear, and we go driving down the street. And the first song that plays on his MP3 player is a song that says everything's gonna be okay.
Yes.
He's like, you hear that? I
The
said, yeah. He's like,
Bob Marley. Was it that
and
one?
then there are times where we're driving and it's raining and the song will come on about it raining outside.
Hmm.
He sees
Yeah.
numbers all the time. And we have this thing that we do where, because he works nights still, I cook him a late dinner sometimes, and sometimes he forgets to tell me what he wants for dinner, right? So in my mind, I'm already decided what I'm going to make him for dinner. He'll text me later on in the night and he'll say, are you going to cook such and such for dinner? And it's the same exact thing that I just made up my mind I was going to make him for dinner.
Wow.
Put
Already
that in
done
my
it.
mind.
Already done it.
Already did it. He's like, how did you know? I said, I just know. It's that thing we do
Wow.
together.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just little things over and over. And, just
Hmm.
like I said, sometimes it's subtle and sometimes it's obvious.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um,
Yeah. That's how the paranormal is. It really is.
and so we're going back to the time where, when things were really ramping up. And when my kids finished high school, they decided they wanted some freedom. So they decided to move out, both of them at the same time. And it wasn't empty nest syndrome I felt. It was more than that, right? I was trying to rediscover who I was as a person, right? So I was going through the dark night of the soul, and I kind of needed some kind of guidance. I saw the numbers, whatever. But at the same time, what was happening is I was alone in the house at night, and all the paranormal activity is going on. The doors opening, closing, stuff, the footsteps upstairs, this and that. And then the dark, I call it a dark being, started hanging out in my hallway outside my door. And the only way I can describe it is probably what people would call the Hat Man, because I didn't see it with my eyes, I saw it with my mind. And he scared me, and I could not sleep with that thing standing outside my door. And he would start, it's almost like he was taunting me. He was trying to scare me. And I just kept feeling that if he came in the room, once he came in the room, that's it. All bets are off. He's going to do something to me. And I was extremely scared, and I didn't want to deal with that. I didn't want to be alone in the house. I left all the lights on. That didn't help. So I started looking into, I started listening to podcasts about how people grid the house with crystals, because I wanted to get rid of all the paranormal activity that was going on. There was hot spots in my house. There was cold spots in my house. Things I couldn't explain. And so I started learning how to grid the house and how to sage the house. And once I did that, that thing went away. And a lot of stuff went away.
Hmm.
And when I listen to you talk about how sometimes this stuff affects your children, I wonder if maybe there's a way you can grid your house to keep some of that stuff away.
Hmm.
Um,
I
I
mean,
have I have selenite all over the house. I have black tourmaline all over the house. Um, I have certain crystals on one side of the house and certain crystals on the other end of the house.
hmm,
And my house the activity has significantly gone down.
interesting.
It hasn't gotten rid of everything, but
Hmm.
it's gotten rid of a lot.
Would you say it's got rid of the negative feeling?
Yes, and
Yeah.
that's why I say, when I was going through that challenging time, my husband and I were not getting along. We were at that breaking point, and I feel like since I've gotten rid of those energies, we are best buddies again, like we're
Hmm.
best friends again. And
Oh,
that was
that's
over
awesome.
10 years ago.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was affecting him, it was affecting my children.
Hmm.
After I got, when my daughter came back home right before COVID, she's like, Mom, this house is so peaceful. It feels good in here. I'm not scared to be in this house anymore.
Hmm.
I said, wow. I said, I didn't think I'd ever hear you guys say that. Like,
Yeah.
you don't realize how much those things affect your family and your life until it's happening.
100%.
And you can't tell people about this stuff because they're going to be like, what are what are you talking about? Just keep your thoughts positive,
Hmm.
just be positive. You'll be fine, whatever. No,
Hmm.
it just sinks into every fiber of your life.
Hmm. And that's,
And go ahead. I'm
I was
sorry.
going to say that's so good that you're in a good place now though, that
Yeah,
it's under
yeah,
control.
it's under control. The funny thing is, my daughter was dating someone who I didn't like. And I didn't like him because of what I felt was coming from him, right? So I put black tourmaline in the two flower pots in front of my house. And I said to the tourmaline, I said, keep all negative people away, right? We invited him over for Christmas one year. And he walks in the house, but he walks in slowly. It's almost like he didn't want to come in, right? And he sat down and we started, opening gifts with my grandson. And he suddenly jumps up and he says, I gotta go. I gotta go. I can't be in here anymore. I gotta go. And my daughter is looking at him like, what the hell is wrong with you? Like, what's wrong with you? You never act this way. So he gets up and takes off. So later on that night, she talks to him. She said, what happened? Like, what, like, did you get a text message? Is something wrong with your family? He said, no. He said, something in that house didn't want me in there. Something, I did not feel welcome in that house. He said, it's not anything your mom said. It's not
Whoa.
anything your dad said. He said, something didn't want me in there and I had to leave. And so guess what? They didn't stay together. They tried.
Man.
They did not stay
Wow.
together. And
Yeah.
I liked him. I actually liked him. But
Interesting.
he was doing some things behind her back.
Hmm.
We come to find out later on. So
Oh
there was
man.
affected her.
Yeah.
I'm
Wow.
just like, it's a lot to take in. I know. It's a
Nice.
lot.
It's
There's
so
more, but
interesting.
I'm just like, I'm just trying to, give you the major stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
You've blown my mind tonight. You really have. It's been super, super interesting.
yeah, it's
But,
it's crazy, but things are mellow now. They're a lot more
mhm.
mellow. I guess we'll have to save the rest for another time because you could,
Yeah.
you
You're
know,
you're always welcome back, you know?
yeah.
I mean,
We have to do something about dreams, though. I think
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
because I have a lot of dreams I want to tell you about, and
Hmm.
oh,
Super interesting.
and remember that thing about the missing clothing
Hmm.
that I told you about?
Yeah.
I think I told you about it. I had an article of clothing I wore, right? And I thought I put it in my laundry basket. And I couldn't find it. All of a sudden, I just couldn't find it. I was looking through my drawers. I was looking through everything because this is not a piece of clothing that I put in anywhere. I keep it in this particular drawer and I just keep it there. And when I need it, I pull it out and I use it, right? But I couldn't find this particular piece of clothing. So after about 2 weeks, I was like, forget it. I'll find it when I find it. Underneath my bed, I have some suitcases and I put my summer clothes in them. I pull out the suitcases because I'm getting my summer clothes ready. That article of clothing was in a plastic bag tied up. I did not put that article of clothing in that bag in that suitcase. That suitcase was sitting underneath my bed since October. I have not gone into that suitcase at all. Something put that article of clothing in my suitcase in a bag
Man.
tied up.
Yeah.
I did not do that. I promise you. When I saw that, I ran to the living room. It was 2 o'clock in the morning. My husband's watching something on TV, and I'm telling him about it. And he's like, "What?" I said, "Yes, I just found it in the suitcase. I've been looking for it. You heard me nagging you about where is it? Where is it?" He's like, "In the suitcase." I said, "Yes." I can't believe it. Like, who does that? And he just laughed. He said, well, it is what it is.
Man,
Yeah,
wow. You've had some incredible experiences. And I mean
yeah,
you've been through some tough times as well. And I
yeah.
would say probably been spiritually attacked quite a lot. And
Oh, yeah,
thankfully you're through that now. I mean
yeah,
you're in a better place and it's under control. But
definitely.
wow.
I have so
Well,
much more to tell you. That's why I said we need to, we
well, we
probably need to do another episode
I
because
would
there's
love
more.
to. I would absolutely love to get you back on and do more. I think we've done, I mean, I think we're over 2.5 hours now. So,
Wow.
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 Thank you so
Oh,
much.
no,
And
thank you.
such an
Thank
honor. And
you.
to think this is your first podcast as well, that's incredible.
Yeah.
So,
I just was so nervous and so scared. I just,
nah, don't need to be
I'm gonna be
nervous.
honest with you. I didn't think my stories were worthy of telling. I just thought it's just,
Wow.
what? Everybody else's story is so cool. Like my story is gonna be like, ugh, they're not gonna be all that exciting. But
Well, let me tell you, your stories have been incredible and very cool, scary
yeah,
and
yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
And I appreciate you coming on and sharing it because it's not easy talking about this stuff. I know
No, it's not.
it's
No, it's
really
not.
not. But wow, thank you. And
And I
thank
thank you
you.
for your time. I thank you for having me
Nice.
on.
No,
And
thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure. And as I
yeah,
say, we're definitely going to do a part two and talk more.
yeah, we
And
have to
I would
because there's so
absolutely
much more to
love to
tell
do
you.
that.
I have so much more to tell you
Yeah.
that's connecting everything together.
Hmm.
So
And that's the wild thing about the parrot. It does all seem to be
yeah,
connected.
it is.
UFOs,
Mm-hmm.
ghosts,
Mm-hmm.
mystical creatures,
It's
cryptids.
all
It
connected.
all seems to be connected, and
Yeah.
it's putting those pieces together, and we're slowly getting there. I don't know if we're going to get all the answers, but we're going to try.
You
That's
know
for
what?
sure.
At this point, I don't want the answers anymore. I'm really
Hmm.
not seeking them. I just want to live a normal life.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not interested anymore.
Hmm.
I might have been before,
Hmm.
not anymore. I've learned enough. I've seen
Yeah.
enough. I don't want
Hmm.
the
You know,
freaky
I
life
get it. I
anymore.
get it. I totally get it. I know you've experienced
Yeah,
enough to know that it's
yeah,
real and there's more to this world.
yeah,
But
yeah,
you're happy to not experience anything else. I completely
definitely,
get it.
definitely.
Miss G, it has been such a pleasure talking to you tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Can you tell the listeners if you want to be found where they can find you?
Um, my email is Mrs. Smith 70 at gmail.com.
Awesome. Awesome. Well,
And
Miss
thank
G,
you for your time, Tommy. It's been fun.
thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. And we'll do it again. We're going to talk more, that's for sure.
Yep.
And yeah, keep safe and yeah, thank you.
You
Thank you for
too.
your time.
Thank you.
Guys,
Yeah.
thank you so much for listening. We hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you have, share it where you can. That is a great way to support the show. If you've got any experiences you'd like to share, get in touch. There's an email in the show description that you can find now. Send us an email and we'd love to talk to you and love to get you on the show as well. So thank you, Miss G. Stay safe and keep it freaky. Bye for
Thank
now.
you.
Thank you so
Bye.
much.